Hello everyone, Hammad here. Welcome to my channel, Cloud with Hammad, DIY Cloud Learning to Inspire. For today, our cloud series, I will be deploying point-to-site VPN in Azure. During the process, I will create a network, create and configure VPN gateway. After that, I will configure Azure VPN software to local host or on-prem machine. Then we'll create some root certificate to authenticate. And then lastly, we'll create an IIS VM using PowerShell to test our connectivity from our on-prem site to the cloud network. But before we get into our lab, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe, like, and share with friends. I would really appreciate it. Now, without further delay, let's go to our notes. Alright guys, so on my whiteboard you can see that this diagram actually explains a little bit more that we will create a network, we'll have configure our VPN gateway, and then we'll also set up a local machine, you can say on-prem or my machine up at the local where I am. So what we'll do is we'll install some VPN software here after configuring this, and we'll make sure we generate some certs and to ensure that the cert matches the gateway here, and so that it can authenticate. Once that is done, we will actually like VPN into our cloud, and then I will install a machine, IIS machine up here in the cloud, and we'll remote into that machine to see the connectivity. Also, we'll try to remove the IP address, like make it as a private IP and VPN into it. So over here, same thing, resource group, virtual network, subnet, virtual network gateway. We'll either install Ubuntu or IIS, depends what it is. We'll configure point-to-site connection, and then we'll download and install VPN connection software and test the connection. So now, without further delay, let's get into our lab. Alright guys, I'm logged into my portal here with my user tenant, and then the documents that I would say, there is a document from Microsoft, how to configure a point-to-site VPN. Just Google it. It will bring you to this same location, how to configure it. These are the steps that I'm going to follow up here, which is in here. This page actually, how to generate root certificates. I will actually leave a link on the GitHub as well, but this is a place where you'll create certificates as well. So let's create a resource group first, and once we get here, we'll create a resource group. We'll give it a use subscription. Let's use my, and then I would say point-to-site VPN. You can do, I'll do West US because that's closest to where I am. I would suggest use the closest location so that it's easier for you to work. Click next and then create. Once the resource group is created, we will create a virtual network. So for virtual network, we'll come here. Either you can type in virtual network or you can select it from here. Once I get to virtual network, you will add a virtual network. Over here, we will give name, resource group. We'll select this resource group, name of virtual network, point-to-site VNet, and then obviously it's on West US, which is where my network is. Area space or a CIDR block, we can leave it the way it is for 10.16. Subnet, we will default it to 10.24. Security, we will disable the Bastion host, denial attack, firewall, we don't need it right now. No tagging, and then we'll just create the network. Okay, the network is deploying. The next thing what we'll do is we will create another subnet just for gateway. So just like Bastion hosts subnet, virtual network gateway should also have their own subnet. So once this is deployed, we will actually go in here and we'll click on to subnet. Once we come up here, you can see there's a default we created. Up here you see gateway subnet, so you will click on gateway subnet. It will pick up like a CIDR block. Well, it's going to pick up the subnet IPs range. And then you don't have to worry about NAT gateway or anything like that. Click save, and it will create a subnet. So what's going to happen is when we will create virtual network gateway, it will pick up this subnet from our network. So just like bastion host, firewall, all of them has to be deployed in a different network, a different subnet. So I was just thinking that, we should have just left it at 29. We don't need 251 space for gateway subnet, but it's okay. This is a lab, but I would suggest 10.0.1.0/28, 29, or 27 would be a better approach. Even the document reference to that too. Anyways, we come here, we create two subnet. Now we'll go to virtual network gateway. Once we get to virtual network gateway, it takes a good 10 minutes to create virtual network gateway. So let's create this first. Once we get here, so this is the basic. This says select the virtual network gateway to get your resource group. So it's asking for us to select the P2S VNet that we created. We will do that in a second here. We'll give them a name of P2S VGNW gateway, and then it's in West because that's where our resources are. Make sure gateway type is VPN, not express route, route based, not policy based. Generation SU, since this is a lab, I'll just do GW1. You can have GW2 as well. These are SQUs. Documentations are here. You can just go through here and it will tell you what SQUs are. Virtual network, obviously we selected West US, so we have a PS2 VNet here. We'll use that. If you see up here, it says gateway subnet. It already picked up the one that we have that on, that we created separately. A public IP for gateway network to have an IP, we need to create an IP. So I would say point to site PIP, and then assignment. We just leave it dynamic. Enable active routing. Active routing is basically mostly SQAs with multiple sub gateways, so it's for high performance, or I would say high availability. You use this. We're not doing BGP, so we're just going to leave it like that. Click next, and then we'll hit create. Okay, so it's going to take good 5 minutes to deploy this machine. In the meantime, what we'll do is we'll also configure IIS through PowerShell. For that, we just want to make sure that I'm going to pull up my PowerShell. I'm going to bring the screen here so that it is. I already have created a script for PowerShell. First, we want to make sure that we have logged in to my tenant. So this is basically says connect AZ account. This is a PowerShell command, and this is tenant ID, which is what my tenant is, and subscription, which is my subscription. I think my subscription is a different subscription, so hold on for a second. Let me go and grab my number from subscription. The subscription changes monthly, so no point having to save it or like. So we're using this subscription. So I'm just going to copy, not that one. And we'll copy this subscription, and then we'll go back to here. We'll change this. So it's saying that, hey, connect to this tenant ID and this subscription. So I'm going to select this. We'll go slowly, and I'll explain to you as well. So click here, click next. It's going to pop up the box for me to ask to add my ID and password. I'm just going to select this because I'm already have my ID and password saved. Now it shows that, hey, it logged me into pay-as-you-go dev test, which is not what I want. So I would just say AZ disconnect. I think it is a disconnect. Just happening at the back end. It's the virtual network gateway is happening, so just be patient with that. Let's do this. We're just going to use this command, and I'll hit this. It locked me out. So once again, I'm just going to go back here. Just want to make sure that I'm using the right subscription, which I am. So for some reason, this is my subscription. I'll go back. All right, so now it logged me in into MSDN. That's it, so that's good. Next thing is we need to define our resource group. Where do we want to create our VM, location, and the name of the VM. I think, so if I go back here, we'll just click on resource group. So we want to make sure that VM you can create anywhere if you want, but I think what we're doing is we are VPN P2S VPN is my resource group. So I'll copy this. Okay. P2S RG. It will pick up our West US. Name of the machine is ISVM. That's good. This one, we're gonna just do a variable set here. This variable is in the system. Now $cred is where we're gonna put in the password of the virtual machine. So this is like the credential right now. If I do $cred, it won't show anything, right? Test admin. But if I do the whole thing $cred, and it's going to ask me, what do you want to keep the name of the machine? So we'll just do test admin and then password. Click OK, and the passwords. Resource group we already have defined. So this one actually says, hey, create a new Azure resource group named resource group, which is this one, and then location. So location West US. So once I do that, it's going to say, hey, you know what, the resource is already there. Do you want to, well, it created it. So if I go here, it created a resource group up there while the deployment is still happening for our VPN gateway. Just going to click here for a second, and then we get to our resource group. And then when I get here, if you see, it is creating. It will create. So once that is done, over here we will say, hey, create a new AZVM resource group, which we already have variabled it, name of that VM, which already we have given it, and then location, which is West US, what version of the image, Windows 2016 data center, virtual network. I would say in point to site dash VNet. I think that was our virtual network. If I say point to site VNet, yeah, that's the one. And then name of the subnet, you can say my subnet. Security group is the same, public IP, and then credential, use the credential that I set it up here. And then port 80 is open for that. So let's select this one and then hit this, and it's going to go ahead and create the VM there. So if you can see, creating Azure resources, public IP address. This is using PowerShell. So, I mean, you can do it through Portal as well, but, you know, working in PowerShell and or Portal, this is much better, faster because we are doing something else. All right, so it's going to take a little bit, few minutes. All right, so it created the specification we gave them, resource group P2S RG, and then VM name of the machine, VM ID, and it succeeded. Next step is to install IIS on that machine. So click up here, and I would select all the way here. First, public setting. This is to execute Windows feature web server. So I would select this one. And then I would select a command, this VM extension for installing IIS. So a VM extension, IIS name, resource group one we define, VM we already have set it up, and it says Microsoft Compute publisher, and then customer extension. This is custom extension, and public setting and location we already have defined it, and we'll just hit this, and it's going to go ahead and install IIS on the website. While this happens, we're just going to minimize this. This is going to take time. We'll go back here, and then we'll see how is our virtual network gateway is taking place. So it takes good. So if I click here, you can see how long it's gonna. It usually takes 5 or 10 minutes. So it's right now deploying. It did deploy public IP. Now it is working on virtual gateway. So so I would click up here. You can download the setting, and it will tell you. It will give you the script. So it's taking time. So once we get here, once this is deployed, this is all going to show up. We don't need that. This is see if we hit JSON, it's going to download the JSON file from that deployment. Okay, for now we're just going to wait till the gateway get deployed, and obviously the VM is also installing. Alright guys, one thing I was checking, I believe I gave the wrong resource group name, so that's why it created its own resource group. So if I minimize this to show you what I'm talking about, and I come here, I believe when I was working on PowerShell, the P2S RG I gave, so we should have given the P2S VPN. If I look up here, there is a VM created using PowerShell, so the script won't run just fine, except for the resource variable that we gave. So you can see it's okay. So if to verify IIS is working, if I go into this resource group, all I have to do is locate the VM and look for the IP, and once I have the IP, I'm just going to put it on the browser to see if IIS is running or not. So copy this IP, click here, and I would just put in here. This should run the IIS server for us. So you don't have to log in, you don't have to just go in and install the user role. You just do IIS here. So anyway, so I need IIS to be in that VPN site to point to site dash VPN resource group. I'm going to just delete this one here while we're still going through the the deployment of virtual network gateway is already happening. So just going to do this quickly here. Come back here. We already logged in. Just going to define resource group again. This time we're just correctly doing it. Click this $CRAD. Resource group, everything is going to be the same. And it says, hey, provided resource group already exists. Are you sure you want to? Yes. If you remember in my last, when I was creating the other VM, I said that it's going to ask you this question. This is the question it's asking. That is done. And then same thing, just going to create here. It's installing. Alright guys, so the virtual network gateway is deployed. If I click up here, actually before we do that, let's check out the detail. So first we'll go back here for a second here. we'll come here and then we look at the deployment detail. I don't need to download. Click OK. And you can see it took good 17 minutes, 58 seconds to deploy a virtual network gateway. In the meantime, if I look at my PowerShell, the machine is already been deployed up here as well. So what we'll do is we'll also check for the machine, resource group, copy here, and then once we hit enter, we use this IP, it should deploy, it should show us the IP address. So yep, IS install, so you can basically install IS through PowerShell. You don't have to log in, you don't have to install the user role and then install IS. So this is how you would do it. All right, so the next thing is to go log into our resource group. Once we get here, you can see this is our resource group, SKU, health. Configuration, we just configure it. You will use the default setting for configuration, generation 1, SKU, GW1. If we want multiple gateways, we can enable or disable and configure BGP. For connection, we can have, like this is like so site to site. I would just, later on, we'll go into Azure site to site as well. But now we'll come here, point to site configuration on the left-hand side in the gateway. Once that loads, we need to define an address pool. So address pool is basically like how many machine can connect to, click on configure. Address pool would be, let's say, my network is, if I do IP CMD and IP config. So I'm on 192 network, and this is on 10 network, the whole cloud. And so we'll give this 172.16.1.0/24. So whatever machine out there on-prem at somebody's house, when they log into our cloud, they will use this address space subnet to their machine should show up like that. Tunnel type, we're gonna use IKEV2. We can do SSL and IKV, but we'll just use this one for today. Authentication type, if you want to do web authentication, you can select Azure Active Directory. We'll use Azure Certificate. Over here, we just need to generate a root certificate as well as, for that, what we'll do is, again, we'll use PowerShell. We'll come to command here. I showed you can use this. I'll leave the link as well, but generating and exporting certificate from point to site using PowerShell. We'll get here, click up here. So we already are logged in. So this needs to be run on your machine. It can be a local machine. I will just click this, and it will generate a local certificate under name of P2S root cert. And then we'll just use a client certificate. Click here and click this, and it will generate a client certificate that is the thumbprint up here. All right, so in order for us to find this, we'll just, this is a conversion of certificate. So I would say cert mgr.msc, I would think. I think cert. There you go. So click here. Once we get here, we need to convert these certificates so that we can authenticate our personal machine. Get to personal certificate. These are the two. One is all, one is client. So I would click on all, and I will all task export, and we'll export this first into a private key. Next, we'll use base encoder so that we can have that like a thumbprint or the encryption key in a text format. We'll click next. Where do you want to save? You can have it wherever download. You can even put it in your S3 bucket or storage blob, or I'm just going to leave it at the desktop for now. I'll just say C1 as a certificate 1, and I will save, next, and next. And it did certificate was installed for the root machine. And then now we'll right click on this one. We will actually, let's do this first. Let's go back here, and this one is installed, so I'll open it as root notepad, and then from here all the way till here I copy this, and I would go back to my portal and I would paste up here, and I would just give it a name of cert root. I would say root cert, and I would save it. Once that is done, it's happening. In the meantime, I'll go back here and I will try to install the client authentication. So right click here, export. First I will export it and then I will install it. Next, I would export this into private key. Next, and then this time it's saying personal information exchange. All these include all certificate, path, and possible. Next, password. I would just give in password. Okay, click next. I guess we'll just do it in the desktop as well. I would say CC2, client certificate 2, save, next, and then finish. Once you finish this, that's it. You're done here. X out here. In the meantime, minimize this so you can see this certificate here. So I'm just gonna wait for this to finish. Once that happens, we'll get certificate, like all the settings are done. It's going to give us an option to download the VPN client. We'll do that in a second. I'm going to put a pause for a second and then come back. All right, the certificate information is saved. It did show me, and then there's an option for me to download the client. I would do that in a second. Let's go back here for a second. This is the cert that is the client certificate. I'll just right click and I will install PFX. Once that happens, it's asking me for store location, local machine, or current user. Currently, I'll just use it as current user. Click next. It is going to specify you want to import. I just said this, next, and then password that I set it up. Click next, and automatically certificate. Click next and finish. It's going to ask me, you are about to install a certificate from a certification authority claiming to represent P2S root. All this detail with the thumbprint. Click yes. It's done. All right, let's go back here and click on download VPN. And I'm hoping it's going to initiate a download shortly. All right, there you go. Downloaded the VPN. It's a zip file, so there you go. So I would want to extract it in a compression, so you can just say extract, download. You can do another folder here. Delete file. Select this folder. You can create your own folder here, so that's what it is. So click here. I would go download, delete file. We'll use Windows AMD 64, and then this is a VPN client setup. So double click on this. It's asking me do you want to install VPN client for P2S VNet? We'd say yes. And it's doing everything. Click close. and I believe we have installed the software. So I would click here and say VPN, open VPN, and now you can see there is a VPN connection already established. So I would click on this one, PS2 VNet. That means that I am using my local computer. I think we already showed up the IP address here. And once we log in, it should give me an IP address of 172 because that's the address pool I defined. So click connect. It's gonna pop up with this, and it says, you know, you're logging into Microsoft Windows Azure network, and click connect. I would click connect. It's gonna start the route DLL file. Click connect. Established and verifying password because we given the certificate. Running custom script, and we are connected. Perfect. So if I close this one here and I go up to my network, click here, so you can see that there is a VPN connection connected to our cloud in here. We'll get the first, we'll see if we can remote in, log into that public IP. So click here on this resource group. This is the VM. Now you can see that it is letting me log in with a public IP address from my home computer because I'm VPN'd into. So that completes the lab. In the meantime, what we'll do is we'll also try to use this local IP, which is a private IP. Copy this here, and then we'll just put that in and hit connect. And it should also let us log in with the private IP. So before we do that, let's go to network first on this machine and remove the public IP because we don't need a public IP. So for you to see that, you know, you can establish a connection locally from your local machine, and then you click on to network interface. Once you get to network interface, I would go IP configuration, and then I would just we don't need IP. Click on IP config 1. This is one of the exams question as well. How do you like disable the public IP address? You disassociate and you save. Once you save that, what's going to happen is the machine would not have a public IP, so you cannot access from a public IP. But since we are VPN, we can remote in using private IP address. So I'll just show you in a second here. This is the IP that machine has. In a second here. In the meantime, let's go back here. We go to our VM and overview. So once I click onto overview, if you know that we removed the public IP, so we don't have a public IP, and then we do have a private IP, which is 10.4, and we are VPN into our cloud, so we're going to use 10.4. We'll hit connect, and it should connect. It should let us log into our machine. Click OK, and it's going to let you log in. Yes. All right, so we are logged into a machine that is on the cloud from VPNing into this machine. So this is to complete the lab. Lab is complete to do a point to site VPN. All right, guys. So last thing last, as you already know, we have connected to our local machine onto the cloud, and we have IIS here. We can install IIS actually, and then we can use VPN into our local machine. But you can see I am remoted into via VPN to a machine that is on the cloud on the network. Okay, that completes the lab. What we're gonna do is we'll disconnect. I'll show you how to remove everything very easy. So I'll just come here. I would even if I need to, I would just click here and select this and disconnect. So we are now not anymore connected to the network. You can see I got disconnected here. I will cancel this. I'll close this, and then we'll do quick one more thing here. Well, since we are already have created the two resources, P2S RG and PS2 VPN, we're just gonna delete them through PowerShell. So I have command for that. We're just gonna do select here. I would say P2S VPN. That's one of the resource group we created, I believe. And we hit select this, and we'll play this. And this is going to go and remove everything from the resource group we have. All right, guys, so you can see the resource group P2S VPN is deleted. So if I go back here and I refresh, I should see no resource group. Anything that I created, virtual gateway, network, machine, everything was deleted. So that will be it, our lab, for our lab. So just to recap, we created a resource group, virtual network, subnet, gateway, VPN gateway. We created a machine. Actually, we did create an IS machine, but that was in a different resource group. Point to site connection. We exchanged some search between the client and the cloud, installed a VPN connection, and we made a connection. We logged in from our local computer through 172 network address pool, and we got into our VM that was on our network on a private IP after removing the public IP. That will be it for our lab. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to subscribe, and I would love for you to share with your friends and like the video if you enjoyed them. So until next time, you have yourself a great day. Bye.